They couldn't stop laughing at my boots. My own mother whispered, "Try not to stand too close to the guests." My father pretended he didn't know me, and my brother actually offered one of the waiters money to find a better place for the dirty farmer. I smiled, stepped back, and stayed silent, because sometimes the truth doesn't need a loud voice. Sometimes it only needs the right moment. If you've ever been judged because of your clothes, your job, or the dirt on your hands, then you'll understand exactly how this story begins. My name is Ethan Brooks, and I've been called a farmer for as long as I can remember. Not in a respectful way. To my family, the word farmer meant poor, uneducated, someone who never made anything of himself. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Daniel, was the family's greatest achievement. He had an MBA, a beautiful house in the suburbs, a brand new luxury SUV, and a social media page filled with photos that made his life look perfect. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every birthday dinner somehow became another celebration of Daniel's success. Whenever someone asked what I did for a living, my mother would smile awkwardly before saying, "Oh, Ethan still works on the farm." She always said the farm, never his farm. She never mentioned that I had bought the land from Grandpa after everyone else refused to keep it. She never mentioned that I'd spent 12 years turning dying soil into one of the most productive farms in the county. She never mentioned that over 70 families depended on my business for their jobs. Those details didn't fit the image they wanted people to see. To them, I was just the son who never left the dirt behind. When Daniel announced he was getting married, I honestly believed it might be a chance for us to become a family again. I ignored every insult from the past. I bought him a wedding gift, months in advance. A handcrafted walnut dining table built by a local carpenter whose workshop I'd quietly helped save after a devastating fire. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't expensive enough to impress rich people, but it meant something. Family meals, conversations, memories. At least, that's what I thought family was supposed to be. The wedding took place at the beautiful lakeside Grand Resort. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Professional photographers rushed from guest to guest. Everything looked like it belonged in a magazine. Then my old black pickup rolled into the parking lot. I smiled. It wasn't shiny, it wasn't new, but it had carried me through 12 harvest seasons without ever giving up on me. I grabbed the gift from the passenger seat, dusted off my jacket, and walked toward the entrance. The moment I stepped inside, I heard laughter. Not from strangers, from my own cousins. "Hey, everybody!" Derek shouted loud enough for nearby guests to hear the farm finally closed long enough for Ethan to leave it. A few people laughed politely. Then Derek looked down at my boots. They were clean, but years of work had left permanent scratches in the leather. He pointed at them. "Those boots don't exactly match a 5-star wedding." More laughter. I looked down for a second. Those boots had walked thousands of acres. They'd stood beside my grandfather when he taught me how to plant my first crop. They'd carried me through storms, floods, droughts, and the hardest years of my life. I wasn't ashamed of them, not even a little. I kept walking. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers reflected across polished marble floors while a string quartet played softly near the stage. Everything looked perfect, until my mother noticed me. She walked over quickly, kissed my cheek, then immediately looked down at my boots. Her smile faded. "Ethan." She lowered her voice. "Couldn't you have borrowed nicer shoes?" I looked at her quietly. "These are the nicest ones I own." She sighed. "Just try not to stand near Daniel's new in-laws. They're very important people." Before I could answer, my father joined us. He barely looked at me. "Your mother's right. We don't want anyone getting the wrong impression." The wrong impression? I wanted to ask what impression they were talking about. That I worked hard? That I earned an honest living? Instead, I stayed silent, because arguing with people who had already made up their minds never changes anything. Then I noticed Daniel walking toward us. He smiled when he saw our parents. His smile disappeared the moment his eyes reached me. He looked down at my boots, then back at my face, and without even saying hello, he called over one of the wedding coordinators. Can you move my brother away from the front tables? I'd rather not have muddy boots showing up in the family photos. For a second, I honestly thought I'd heard him wrong. But then he added something that hurt even more. Maybe seat him near the service entrance. He'll probably feel more comfortable there anyway. My own family laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly. Just enough to let me know they all agreed. I looked around the room. Not a single person defended me, not one. So I picked up my gift, turned toward the back of the ballroom, and that's when an elderly gentleman in an expensive navy suit quietly stood up from a nearby table. He had been watching everything, every word, every laugh, every insult. He slowly walked toward me, looked at my worn boots, then smiled. "Young man," he said, "I believe we've met before." I stared at him, confused, because I had never seen him in my life. Or so I thought for a moment. I just stood there, staring at the elderly man. He looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen him. He smiled as if he already knew exactly what I was thinking. "You don't recognize me, do you?" I shook my head. "I'm sorry, I don't." He chuckled. "I didn't expect you to. My beard was black the last time we met." Before I could ask another question, he extended his hand. "My name is Richard Lawson." The name hit me instantly. Richard Lawson, founder of Lawson Fresh Markets, one of the largest family-owned grocery chains in the Midwest. His company owned hundreds of supermarkets. Everyone in agriculture knew that name. I quickly shook his hand. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." "The honor is mine," he replied. That surprised me. He looked down at my boots and smiled again. "I see you're still wearing them." I frowned. "I'm sorry." "The same boots. I remember them." I laughed awkwardly. "Sir, I think you're mistaken." "No." His eyes never left mine. "I'm absolutely certain." Then he said something that sent chills down my spine. 3 years ago, during the flood. Suddenly, I remembered. The river had overflowed after 3 days of nonstop rain. Half the county had been underwater. I spent almost 48 hours helping neighbors move livestock to higher ground. Late that night, I found an older man trapped inside a pickup truck that had slid into a ditch. His phone was dead. His driver had gone looking for help. Without thinking, I tied a chain from my tractor to his truck and pulled it to safety. The old man had offered me money, a lot of money. I refused. I simply told him, "Next time someone needs help, help them." Richard smiled. "I never forgot that." I felt embarrassed. "Honestly, I had no idea who you were." "I know, and that's exactly why I've spent 3 years trying to find you." Before I could answer, Daniel walked over. His smile looked forced. "Mr. Lawson, it's an honor to have you at our wedding." Richard gave him a polite nod. "Congratulations!" Daniel immediately stepped between us. "I hope my brother isn't bothering you." Richard slowly looked at him. "Bothering me?" Daniel laughed nervously. "You know, he's a little socially awkward." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Richard's expression hardened. "The only awkward thing I've witnessed today is the way your family has treated this man." Daniel's face lost all color. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." Richard glanced toward my parents. "I've been sitting here for nearly 20 minutes. I watched every single one of you laugh at him." Nobody spoke. My mother looked down at the floor. My father suddenly became interested in fixing his tie. Richard continued. "Tell me something. Which one of you has ever spent 16 hours in the rain, making sure hundreds of families would still have food next season's silence? Which one of you has ever risked everything to save complete strangers during a flood?" More silence. Then Richard looked at me. "Ethan did." Daniel swallowed hard. "Sir, with all due respect, he's just my brother." Richard smiled. "No, that's where you're wrong." He reached inside his suit jacket and pulled out a small envelope. "I've been looking for Ethan because I wanted to thank him properly." He handed the envelope to me. Inside was a handwritten letter. Attached to it was a business card with Richard's private phone number written on the back. "I've been hoping we'd meet again. I believe it's time we finally talked about working together." Daniel blinked. "Working together?" Richard nodded. "My company has been searching for a long-term agricultural partner." He looked directly at me. "And after everything I've learned about Carter Farms, I've already made my decision." I stared at him. "You've heard of my farm?" Richard laughed. "Heard of it, Ethan? My buyers won't stop talking about it. They tell me your crops consistently outperform farms twice your size." They tell me your employees stay because you treat them like family. They tell me you pay local suppliers before paying yourself." He paused. "That's the kind of man I want to do business with." Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my father's expression change. For the first time in years, he wasn't looking at me with disappointment. He was looking at me with confusion, almost respect. Daniel quickly interrupted. "I'm sure whatever business discussion you have can wait until after the wedding." Richard looked at him calmly. "It could." He smiled. "But I don't think Ethan owes anyone here another minute of his time." Those words landed like a hammer, because deep down, every member of my family knew they were true. Just then, one of the hotel managers hurried toward us. "Mr. Lawson." "The executive dining room is ready." Richard nodded. Then he turned back to me. "Ethan, I'd like you to join me. We have something important to discuss." I looked at my family. My mother finally took a small step forward. "Ethan, maybe we should all sit together first." A few minutes earlier, she didn't even want my boots near the family photos. Now, she wanted me at the family table. I smiled politely. "Maybe another time." Richard placed a hand on my shoulder. "Shall we?" I nodded. As we walked toward the private dining room, I could feel dozens of eyes following us. Behind me, the laughter had disappeared. The whispers had begun. And for the very first time, my family realized they hadn't been embarrassed by my dirty boots. They had been blind to the man wearing them. The executive dining room was quiet. The noise from the wedding disappeared the moment the doors closed behind us. Richard Lawson motioned for me to take a seat across from him. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled. "You know what impressed me the most about you?" I shook my head. "The day you pulled my truck out of that flood, you never asked who I was. You never asked what I could do for you. You simply helped." He leaned back in his chair. "In my experience, people reveal their true character when they believe nobody important is watching. And that day, you passed a test you never knew you were taking." I smiled. "My grandfather always told me that kindness isn't an investment. It's simply the right thing to do." Richard nodded. "Your grandfather was a wise man." Just then, two executives walked into the room carrying folders. One of them placed a thick document on the table. "Ethan," Richard said, "for the last year we've been looking for a farming operation that shares our values. We've investigated dozens of companies. Some were larger than yours. Many had more money. But none of them had your reputation." He slowly slid the folder toward me. "I'd like Carter Farms to become our primary supplier for the Midwest." I opened the folder. My eyes scanned the first page, then the second. By the third page, I honestly couldn't believe what I was reading. It wasn't just a supply agreement. It was a long-term partnership that would allow me to expand into 3 new states. The projected value over the next several years was more than I had ever imagined. Richard smiled. "I don't expect an answer today. I simply wanted you to know that someone noticed all those years of hard work. For a moment, I couldn't find the right words. Thank you. That means more than you know." Stood and extended his hand. "No, you earned it." As we shook hands, the dining room door suddenly opened. Daniel stepped inside. His face looked tense. "Ethan, there you are." Richard glanced at him. "I believe we were having a private meeting." Daniel forced an awkward smile. "I'll only need a minute." Richard looked at me. "It's your decision." I nodded. "It's okay." Richard and the executives quietly stepped outside, leaving us alone for several seconds. Daniel said nothing. Then he looked at me and sighed. "I think we got off on the wrong foot today." I couldn't help but laugh. "The wrong foot? You humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. You asked them to move me away from the family. You laughed at me because of my boots. And you call that the wrong foot?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I was under a lot of pressure. The bride's family," I interrupted him. Don't blame them. Those words came from you." He looked down. "I know. I'm sorry." It was the first apology I'd ever heard from him. Years ago, I would have accepted it without hesitation. Today, it sounded different. Not because it wasn't sincere, but because it arrived only after someone important had recognized my worth. I looked him in the eyes. "Would you have apologized if Richard Lawson had never spoken to me?" Daniel didn't answer. His silence was louder than any excuse. A soft knock interrupted us. My mother slowly walked into the room. Her eyes were red. "Ethan, I owe you an apology too." I stayed quiet. She continued. "When you were little, your grandfather used to tell me that you would build something special one day. I believed him. So what changed?" She wiped a tear from her cheek. "I let success blind me. I started measuring people by what they wore, instead of who they were. For the first time that day, I believed every word she said." She wasn't making excuses. She was admitting the truth. My father appeared behind her. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he walked over and looked at my boots. "I bought those for you." I smiled slightly. "You did. You were 16, he nodded. "I remember. I told you they would last if you took care of them." I looked down at the worn leather. "They did." He swallowed hard. "I should have taken better care of my son, too." The room became silent. Those words carried more weight than any business contract. I stood up. "I spent years trying to earn this family's respect. I thought if I worked harder, expanded the farm. But today I realized something. The problem was never my boots. The problem was that you had already decided what they represented." My mother quietly cried. Daniel couldn't even look at me. My father nodded slowly. "You're right." Richard gently knocked before stepping back into the room. "I don't mean to interrupt. The reception is about to begin," he smiled at me. "But I have a feeling you've already made the most important decision today." I looked back at my family. "I forgive you." 3 words. Simple, honest, unexpected. But forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It simply means I won't carry it with me anymore. My father lowered his head. "We understand." Richard and I walked back toward the ballroom together. As the doors opened, conversations immediately stopped. Guests turned to watch us. The same people who had laughed at my boots now watched with curiosity. Not because my boots had changed. They hadn't. They were still scratched, still dusty, still worn from years of honest work. The only thing that had changed was the truth everyone could finally see. Before leaving, I walked over to the gift table. I picked up the handcrafted walnut dining table I'd brought for Daniel. He looked surprised. "I don't deserve this," I smiled. "Maybe not today. But I hope every time your family sits around it, you remember that the strongest foundations are built by people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty." I placed the gift beside him. Then I turned toward the exit. Outside, my old pickup truck was waiting exactly where I'd parked it. I climbed inside, started the engine, and looked once more at my boots. They were still covered with the marks of a lifetime of work, and for the first time, I realized they had never been dirty. They had simply carried me farther than anyone in my family had ever imagined. If this story reminded you that real character is worth more than appearances, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. You never know who might need this reminder today. The end.